It's a customary thing at film festivals to always applaud after a movie's over, regardless of whether you liked it or didn't. Because a lot of people put their hard work and effort into it. Some of those people are there when the movie premieres. And we as an audience are among the first people in the world to see it. Not a single person in my theater clapped for Weathering with You. I didn't either, because I had absolutely no idea how to feel about it. And as I'm recording this video, possibly for the third or fourth time, I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it, but I'm sitting here, I've had plenty of time to think about it, so here we go. For those who don't know, Weathering with You is the latest anime feature from director Makoto Shinkai, the director of Your Name, which for a while was the highest-grossing anime movie of all time. Naturally, that's pretty big hype, and that's enough to get me excited for it. I also wanted to see multiple animated features at TIFF this year and give some acknowledgement to animation, especially hand-drawn animation. This movie centers around a teenage boy who has ran away from home and goes to Tokyo, where, at this point in recent memory, it has been raining 24/7. And in a slice-of-life way, we kind of discover how he becomes adaptable to city life. He meets several different people, he finds a part-time job, and he meets this girl around his age that he's attracted to. And he finds out that just through sheer willpower and praying, she can manipulate the weather and temporarily turn it into sunshine. Now you might be asking, well gee, that's such a good power, why doesn't she do that in the first place? All the time. Ever. Well, this movie has an interesting way of explaining that every time she does that, it takes a physical toll on her. And as the movie progresses, we see how the tolls that are being taken on her affects all the people around her, especially this young boy. I, not even for a second in this movie, knew how to feel about it, because I had heard nothing about it, I didn't see any trailers, so when I started watching it and realized that it was going for this slice of life thing, I was slowly adapting to it, and things did get better just because of how honest and realistic the scenes were written. There are so many moments that are portrayed as being mundane, and that's the thing that made them effective. These characters are not super complex or anything, but they are charming. They have some charisma, they have something about them in the present or in the past that we can relate to and understand. And when we start to see this girl use her powers on a more consistent basis, we can latch onto her especially just because she enjoys the fact that she's bringing happiness to people who are really just enjoying the fact that they can just be outside, they can be themselves, as opposed to raining 24/7 and feeling like they're cooped into their houses or their work forever. And the ironic thing is, what I thought was the ending to this movie was when her powers start to take the toll on her the most. And what we got was an interesting examination about how someone can, without giving anything away, sacrifice something about themselves in order to improve the lives of God knows how many people just in the city, let alone in the country. It portrayed her as being very selfless, brave, and understanding that life isn't perfect. And that was the moment where I started to think this movie is legitimately good. Not great. It has really predictable moments in terms of its romance and some anime character tropes that are just kind of stupid, like creepy sex pervs and everything like that. But at that point, I was latching onto it. I was just like, this is good. I'm glad I sat through this entire thing. Then there's about what feels like another hour's worth. It probably wasn't, but after this sacrifice, this character choice that was deeply important was made, the main boy not only turns into a complete selfish prick, but kind of a psychotic maniac too. Who, while he doesn't necessarily hate this character by any means, feels as if he made her make that choice. And he decides to go to extreme lengths to undo this thing that improved the lives of so many people, improved their city, possibly their country, possibly solved so many problems, and decides that he wants to undo all of these things. It is really hard to describe this without spoiling anything, and I don't want to do a spoiler warning in this video because I've never really done that. I don't know what's a good way to do it and what isn't. But for what feels like a good hour or so, we get nothing but this main character who we were kind of already latched onto, but have completely lost it at this point, turned into a crazy, fucked up kid who screams everything. Fucking everything. And even by anime standards, it is loud and obnoxious, and there's nothing even unintentionally funny about it. It was really, really pathetic. It involves him breaking out of a police station by running away when all the cops are looking away. And of course, nobody stops him in the middle of a hallway. Nobody runs in front of him. Nobody tackles him. Nobody pepper sprays him. Honestly, this kid was such a little shit at this point. He deserved any of the above. And we get a very cheesy, over-the-top, and stupid car chase. You know, in a movie where they're charging people money in order to change it from rain to sun, we get a fucking car chase. And the weird thing is, all of the characters around him say, hey, you're making a big mistake, think about what she wants, until bad things start happening to him, which, honestly, he earned those bad things, that they start to be on his side. And for a couple of characters, it makes sense because they're younger than him. But for the older characters, I had absolutely no idea why they were doing any of these things. It went from this decent but not perfect story about how life comes with sacrifices, and then it turns into what's addressed as a happy ending, but it's kind of a pessimistic way of saying that human beings turn selfish at the absolute worst times. And this is speaking for every human being, apparently, and look, since this is a movie about a girl who can manipulate the weather, it's kind of obvious at this point that the message is about climate change, and I have no idea if this movie is arguing that humans are solely responsible for climate change or that it was predetermined to happen anyways just based on the history of the Earth, or whether it's a mixture of both. Because at its core, the main focus in the end is still about the relationship between this boy and girl, which, if you're going to tell a message like that, sure, you can have a theme like that makes sense, like, in terms of metaphors under the surface, but on the surface, these choices still make absolutely no sense. And there are some movies where I've given credit to twists or themes like that, where it makes sense metaphorically but not logically, but they just did a much better job at that. This movie has no idea how to pull that kind of twist off. Weathering with You is one of the most beautiful, best-looking, dumb movies I've ever seen, because it is beautifully animated. I would love to see more hand-drawn movies in general in theaters. And for a while, there are characters who have very good traits about themselves, but the director just throws them away in service of environmental themes. And it becomes very unsure of itself what it's trying to say in terms of its themes and its characters, oddly enough. And for that reason, I'm going to give Weathering with You a 2 out of 5. Guys, thank you for sticking through that. This is not going to be one of my best videos for sure, but I'm just going to roll with it at this point. Stay tuned later on. I'm going to have the review that I was hoping to put out earlier, which is Ford versus Ferrari. And in the meantime, be sure to like, subscribe, check out my other reviews at noperfectmovie.com, and once again, thank you all very much for watching. Take care.